Welcome to Professional Car Washing and Detailing's Wash Talk. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest is James Christian from Centaur Technology Advisors. Welcome, James.
Yeah, good to be here, Brian. Thank you.
Let's get started with a little bit about yourself. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and the career path that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, I'm sure you're curious how an IT guy kind of got involved with car wash. So
yeah,
I'll give you a little bit of background. In high school, joined a co-op program, and we had to find our own jobs. And the job that I found was at a full-service car wash, and so spent about 2 years doing that. And during high school, really enjoyed it. Made some good money doing that as a kid, and but ultimately knew I wanted to be in IT. So after high school, I quit doing that and went to college for a little while. From college, got into IT, worked for some companies like Baylor Healthcare there in Texas, doing internet, network security, wireless for the 9 large regional hospitals plus 150 clinics. Did 10 acquisitions with them. From there, went and worked for a wholesaler that had just been purchased by a private equity firm. So they were in hyper growth mode, and did about 48 acquisitions there. Was managing, all their network security, phones, all the computers, and then after a good time there, we went and I went and worked for a technology organization, just supporting some clients that were regional banks with 12 locations all the way up to global Fortune 50 that were across 32 countries. So, and then ultimately started Centaur Technology Advisors. We're an IT and internet concierge. And then, we decided to focus on car wash, just given some of my experience. And we really like that there's a lot of owner-operators still in this space. So we like the idea that we're helping those individuals, those families, and those groups grow their business, grow their legacy, just as we are.
I got to ask you. You said internet and IT concierge. What does that mean?
So, being on the client side, working with IT vendors for 15 years, we grew pretty vexed with working with some of those individuals, some of those larger companies, and we really wanted to build something different. And I knew for about 10 years that we wanted to start a business, but really try to solidify what that was and how we wanted it to look. And a lot of those other IT organizations, they're manufacturers who, they develop software and hardware and they sell it directly to you. Some of them are resellers and integrators who do just that. They resell and install it for you. So what we decided to do is, go and partner with about 300 different organizations that we created agreements with them. Some of those other IT organizations, they all have their own salesmen, account managers who are pushing their product, whether that's a right fit for you or not. And so when a client comes to us and says, hey, we have this particular need, maybe it's internet, we work with them to see what their needs are, and then we go analyze based on all of our different providers who's the best fit for our clients. We get quotes from there, and ultimately let them make the decision on who they want to work with, and then the provider just pays us a commission for the business that we've brought to them. So our goal is to work on the client's behalf so that they continue to work with us for many years to come, whether it's for new locations or new technologies.
So when one of your customers works with you, does it cost them extra to work with a concierge?
No, the short answer is no. That's a common question that we do get, and misconception. The perception there is instead of working directly with the provider, we're kind of sitting in the middle. We don't sit between the customer and the provider. They can still work directly with them. When they purchase something, they're still signing the agreement directly with them. They still pay their invoices directly to those providers. So we're kind of sitting there as a third party, helping them manage the providers and the solutions. Those providers, they have direct salespeople, and those salespeople get paid a salary. They get paid benefits and 401k and commissions on top of that. So when we're working with a client and we bring business to a particular provider, if that provider wins the business, they pay us a commission, and that's all we're paid. So it's a lot cheaper for the providers to pay only us versus a sales team, and it benefits them and it benefits the client as well. So there again, we're focused on the client's needs.
So your revenue stream comes from the provider, not
Correct.
from your client. So you're basically able to help that client pick the proper provider, the right hardware. I mean, you can help them to kind of design their internet and IT perfectly for them, and it doesn't cost them anything extra.
Yes, sir. We provide that as a value add, and we're working on their behalf. We're not charging them for the service. It's just anything they decide to source through us.
Well, I need you to come visit my house because I'm having trouble getting the internet to work in my gazebo, my television. I can't watch television.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we kind of touched on it already, but I mean, when a car wash owner is considering hiring an IT concierge, like what's your value proposition? Like what do you tell them you're going to bring to the table?
So as I mentioned, we've shaped our business around being an advisor, a concierge on their behalf. So that's a lot of it. For us in particular, we do bring a substantial amount of experience as well. So myself, I have 15 years on the client side, been in the industry for nearly 18. A couple of my business partners been in the business for 15, 25 years as well. So when we built the business, in our minds, there's absolutely no reason that small and medium-sized businesses shouldn't be able to benefit from the same technologies, some of the same processes and solutions that larger enterprise benefit from. So we're bringing a lot of that experience in, helping them run their environments more as an enterprise, become more scalable. In addition to that, there's some leverage as well. So whenever you're a client working directly with a provider, you only represent yourself, and sometimes there may be limited support, limited avenues for you to work with that provider. When you work with us, we're helping to manage that solution for you. So whenever you do move forward with a solution, we don't install it and then leave. We're there helping you manage it for the lifetime that you're using that product, helping you manage the solution as well as the relationship with the provider. And then we also represent other clients as well. So those providers want to keep you happy, so that we as the advisor, concierge, are also happy with that provider. They know if they're not keeping us happy, we represent multiple clients, and that also impacts the new business that we bring to them, and potentially some of the existing business as well. We're also part of some alliances and some groups with other organizations that are very much like ours, where we work together to hold some of those providers accountable and make sure that the clients are getting the best outcomes that they could possibly get.
It seems to me that it would be helpful to have two people that could solve the problem.
Right.
I mean, if you call the provider and it's a 45-minute hold time, but meanwhile you've got 20 cars waiting to get washed, it's part of the business day.
Right.
That it'd be nice to be able to maybe call you and you could say, try this.
Yeah, our goal is to take as much of the work off our clients' plate and then put it on ours as possible, so that they can continue to run their business and not worry about some of the technology.
What are some of the problems that car washes have with internet? I mean, is it a big deal? I mean, is it a common
Absolutely.
issue?
One of the major things that's I'm helping them deal with, is particularly with all the growth going on, is some of those new locations, getting the internet installed. I'm sure many of them listening have dealt with those issues, whether it's permitting issues or construction issues. We do help project manage it. If you're adding a location or two a month, project managing all those internet circuits and when they come in, it can become a pretty big task. So we help project manage that. We even get reports from the construction teams of some of our clients, and we'll review those so that we're ensuring the internet is installed at the appropriate time. And then whenever new locations get added to that report, we automatically go ahead and look at the options, get quotes, and then present those to our client. So they're not even having to tell us, hey, we got this new location, here's the address. Their construction team's working, sending that to us, and we're acting as a part of their team. And then in some cases where there's chronic issues getting some of that connectivity, we can provide some temporary connectivity, whether that's like a 4G, 5G, maybe some satellite, until the primary connection is in. There's specifically in car wash, there's a lot of car washes that are installing new tech. Some of the new camera systems out there that have AI or cloud-based. And so they go and install cameras or maybe a new CRM or some other solution, and then they don't realize, hey, I need to upgrade my internet because I have a larger dependency on internet. So we're doing upgrades for them. Redundancy is a big deal. For retail as a whole, at a minimum, many retailers are putting in 4G as a backup. So we can put in 4G as a backup for automatic redundancy. There's nothing they have to do. It can automatically fail over. That way the business keeps running. Or many businesses are starting to take maybe their top 10% of their locations and put in dual connectivity at those locations because they don't ever want them to be down. And we run those and can set them up to where they're not just an active passive failover, but it's an active, so they get more bandwidth, and the business can continue to run.
So you're talking about like two hardwired providers. So maybe you would have a cable connection. Maybe you would also have a cellular connection or a cable.
Many times it can be cable and fiber.
Cable and fiber?
Yeah, cable and fiber. But there's other solutions out there as well.
That's neat. So basically you've got two pipes coming in and they're operating on both.
Correct.
All the time. But if one goes down, at least you've got.
Yeah, and the data traffic can be manipulated. So, traffic that's important can maybe take the faster fiber circuit, or if it's traffic that's less important, maybe it's some video training that can take the little bit slower traffic. So it's not impacting the business traffic, the business critical traffic.
Interesting. What other services do you provide to car washes?
Yeah, we've talked a good bit about internet, and that's a lot of what I'm doing for the car washes. But we've got 30 different phone providers we work with, contact center software. We can do cybersecurity solutions, physical security, data cabling, wireless networks. So think of it as pretty much anything except applications and websites. We've even got a provider that can do data analytics. So I know there's some specific car wash analytic companies out there, so I haven't really pushed that in the car wash space, but if there's somebody that needs a custom analytics solution, we can help with that as well.
Well, I mean, you probably get a lot of demand for that. I mean, as people are acquiring washes in different places that have different point of sale, different CRM, different accounting. I mean, it's like a jungle of all these different solutions. If you've got 10 washes in 10 places, I mean, data analytics is really important these days.
Like I said, haven't focused on that as much in the car wash space, but yeah, there's some other businesses out there where there's huge demand for the analytics, and I'm aware of some car washes that are going in and swapping out some of those systems, so it's all one.
Is your business focused just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or do you work in multiple states, every state? Like, what's your footprint like?
So we can source and manage stuff globally. We do work heavily across the United States, but if we have listeners that are outside the United States or looking to grow outside the United States, we can source things globally. When working for a previous tech company, worked on a project with a client that was 250 locations across 32 countries. So, that was for internet. So we can source just about anywhere. But, actively we've got projects in New Jersey, California, Colorado, and Texas. So we can source and manage those solutions no matter where they're currently at or looking to grow. And that's part of where we try to help out is, some of these car washes that are in a single state looking to go outside of that. We can make things simpler so that they're not having to figure out some of those internet providers and things as well.
Oh, is this a thing where you actually have to have boots on the ground? Like, do you have to go to all these washes, or are you able to do it remotely, or a little bit of both? Like, what's that look like?
So for the most part, we can do things remotely, and we have technicians that can go out and do setup and install. But there are many cases where I'll go out to locations and meet with providers or take a look at the scenario. Maybe there's some major issues that they're needing help with. And just last week, flew out to Colorado, visited 10 locations for a client just to take a look at their environment and help them out. So, willing to do whatever is needed to properly support the customer.
You mentioned cybersecurity, and I mean, cybersecurity is a really big deal for every business.
It is.
I mean, we actually got a report recently that they shared with our company, and the number of emails that we get that are taken out because they're the threat is like 5 to 1 to the ones that are real. I mean, so every business is just getting peppered with attacks right now. What does the threat landscape really look like for a car wash right now?
We could do a whole episode on that alone. So, I'll try to give a couple key points here. There's a report that comes out by the FBI every single year that kind of outlines who the threat actors are, who's being attacked. And one of the most common misconceptions that I run across is, I'm not a target, I don't have anything of interest, and it's not necessarily the case anymore. The threat actors are going after everybody, even a single location restaurant, mom and pop. They're attacking and taking over social media accounts and causing issues that way. So, and the threat actors these aren't just single individuals or small groups that are working together. This is modern day organized crime. We're talking hundreds, sometimes thousands of individuals working together, sometimes hundreds of millions in funding, through other breaches and money that they've stolen from people. So they're very capable, and they're running as legitimate businesses now with HR departments, recruiting, training, SOPs, the whole 9 yards, just like these car washes, right? So like I mentioned, very capable. Email continues to be the number one avenue that they're attacking and gaining access. What they're doing is they're getting in, they're taking a look at what you have, they're looking at money in the bank that you have, maybe revenue that you have. They're finding any information you might not want someone else to know, whether that's dirt on you or your business, or it could be intellectual property. There may not be a whole lot of intellectual property for a car wash, but if it's a chemicals manufacturer, they absolutely have IP, right? So they're going after that information, and then whenever they're ready, they're seizing all your systems and then saying, hey, pay this amount of money, and they know you can pay it, or you just won't have access to your systems anymore. So they're very real, and they're going after anybody that has revenue. And there's some newer attacks going on out there. Think about it as brand reputation attacks. I haven't seen them in the car wash industry yet. Doesn't mean they haven't happened, but I'm expecting to see more and more of that. And what they're doing is they're creating fake social media accounts, or they're taking over your existing social media. They're creating fake websites. And then what they'll do is they'll send out emails and other things to your clients or to other people. They'll even do social media ads. And they'll look just like the ones you run for, maybe it's a holiday special, buy one, get one wash, right? The victim will click on the link, whether it's an ad or an email, and they'll enter all their credit card information. They'll get charged, and most times they won't even know about it until they show up and come to find out they don't actually have a subscription. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's some of that to watch out for, and multi-factor or two-factor authentication is a major thing that every business should have enabled on email and social media and whatnot.
How could you protect yourself from that? I mean, right now it's the holiday season, so all of us are seeing tons of ads for things that we might want to buy as gifts. I mean, if you see an ad for a car wash and you think, boy, I'm going to sign my wife up, or I'm going to sign my brother up, how would you even know that it was real versus not real?
There's multiple ways to kind of protect yourself. Make sure that multi-factor is enabled. There are some providers I do work with that protects your brand. They actively monitor social media accounts, new websites on the internet, and other systems. And then they have connections into those systems so that they can quickly take those down on your behalf.
Wow.
So there's a few different ways to protect yourself. But if you're an end user, just be aware of what you're clicking on. And then if it takes you to another website, be aware of what that website is. If it's not exactly the brand that you're expecting, be very cautious.
Wow. Well, I mean, that could be devastating to your brand. I mean, especially in the time of social media. I mean, if you had 50 people that thought they paid you for a car wash, and they show up and then they give you terrible reviews and they tell everybody about it, I mean, that could be devastating for your brand. Yeah. Wow, I hadn't heard of that before. That's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, a real world example, there's a business that they had customers calling in asking why their grill hadn't been delivered. So it was a retailer who had the same thing happen to them. Email went out, customers clicked on it, bought this grill that was on sale. They were charged, but it wasn't a legitimate sale. And so, of course, the grill never showed up for them.
You talked a lot about acquisitions, did different points in our conversation. I'm just really kind of curious. So when an acquisition takes place, what are the things that have to happen? Like, what are the things that you do to make it operate smoothly?
Yeah, I joke around and say, I think I have PTSD from all the acquisitions and the process along the way. But, it really started out in the healthcare industry and did 10 acquisitions there. My experience with those was limited. It was primarily just connecting those acquisitions into the corporate systems, the internet, the wireless, that kind of thing. It really ramped up when I went to the wholesaler. And, we did 48 in about 5-year period. And those ranged anywhere from single locations all the way up to one that was 55 locations. Wow. Thankfully, some of the larger ones we had 2 or 3 years to integrate everything. There were at least 5 or 6 of those single location where the executives came to me and said, hey, we've signed a letter of intent. In 4 weeks, we're closing on this business, and we need everything swapped out day one on our systems, internet, phones, computers, applications, everything. Wow. And we did that. So, going into those acquisitions, we try to standardize everything. We replace, first and foremost, we're always getting connectivity up. The business wants to get in and see some of the details, especially around the finances. So we get connectivity up. We can replace computers and printers and phones. We'd swap out all the systems so that everything is standardized and on our corporate, homogenized systems. And then a part of what we do is we also review all the bills. So we'll get with the admin or the accounts payable team for that acquisition and take any bill that looks like it's IT related, review that, and if it's something we consolidated, we'll cancel it. If it's, and many times what I'll find is I'll find services that they're paying for that they haven't been using for years. There was one in particular that comes to mind. It was a 2-location acquisition, and they had upgraded their internet 10 years ago. And the old internet, they had never stopped paying for it. So they had 2 locations that they were paying $500 a month each for 10 years for a service that wasn't used.
Oh my gosh.
So, we try to find savings and consolidation. Working at the wholesaler, just all those acquisitions we did, we were able to save right at $2.7 million in annual OpEx just from consolidating solutions. That doesn't include any, operational efficiencies added into that.
Gosh, just the internet. If you had 2 locations at $500 a month for 10 years, What is that? That's $120,000? That's $120,000 that they spent that just for nothing.
If you're an individual owner-operator, that could have been a retirement Corvette for you.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about scalability for a car wash group. So, as car wash groups are acquiring more washes, I guess it's kind of the acquisition, it's the scalability. Like, what do they have to replace? Like what are the things in a car wash that need to be done?
So Brian, that's a great question. That kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about earlier with clients calling in. Maybe they have 12 locations or 20 locations, and things are kind of becoming unmanageable for them. So they're calling, and we're helping them get that under control. I think the short and oversimplified answer is standardization. We do a good job of maybe standardizing things like uniforms and training and our brand logo, but there's things that get overlooked, like some of the IT and maybe your wireless network, who your internet provider are. But those do go into your daily operations. So, and it's standardizing technology, but when you standardize technology, you can also standardize your processes as well. So, we standardize the technology, help them do that. That impacts, imagine you have a 12-location car wash. It's not uncommon for them to have 4 or 5 internet providers just because they're across, multiple cities within a certain area. Whenever you have issues with one of those, you're having to go and figure out which carrier do I call for support. You have multiple bills, at least 4 or 5, right? If not, 1 for each location. So what we're able to do is standardize that so that, they have one process for support. We can consolidate all those bills down, whether they have 10 locations or we get to the point where we have a car wash with 1,000 locations. We can consolidate that all down to a single invoice, itemized per location. That way, an AP team or an admin who's paying that bill isn't sitting there paying hundreds of bills every single month. They can take one invoice, code it, and pay that, save them some time.
Now, are there internet providers that provide everywhere? I mean, like, is that what you're saying? So you would switch all the locations across multiple states to a single provider?
So we work a lot with aggregators, and what those aggregators do is they manage the internet for you, and then they purchase wholesale from some of the local providers. So it allows you to work with one provider who will monitor your internet. They know if it goes down before you do. They monitor it, they manage it, they invoice you for it. So it's one provider, across the nation if you have locations across multiple states. So
I didn't know that was a thing. That's super convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you were going to have 100 washes in 50 states. I mean, boy, that would get confusing.
Yeah, it becomes a lot of work for sure.
Wow. Well, is there anything more you'd like to share with our audience today, James, before we say goodbye?
There's one thing that's taking several businesses by surprise, and it sounds like a very antiquated discussion, but I'll explain why it's so important. Mm-hmm. And the old phone lines that everybody had in their houses, many years ago, there's still millions of those installed at businesses all over the place, and they're used for not just phone systems, but they're used for many different internet circuits like DSL. They're used for, I don't know of any car washes with an elevator yet, but they're used for elevators, they're used for burglar alarms, fire suppression alarms, different uses, fax machines. And the FCC has deregulated those. So one of two things is happening. In some cases, the carrier's sending a notice saying, hey, we're getting rid of this technology, you need to get rid of it by a certain date. And they don't care who you are, they're shutting it off. I've seen them shut off 3 Air Force bases on a single Friday, right?
Oh, wow.
And the other thing that's happening is they're increasing the price so much that you notice it on your bill and you want to get off of it. We're talking, historically the prices for those were $40 per line. I'm seeing the average price go to $750 a line. And it's not uncommon for
$750 a month per line?
The most I've seen is $950, but yeah, the
Holy
average is
moly.
$750.
Wow.
It's not uncommon for, a branch office that had, phones and internet and maybe a fax to have 2, 3, 4 lines. So just imagine, a 10 location business with 2 phone lines, paying $800 a month for all the locations for services. One month they pay $800, it goes up to $750, and now you've got a $15,000 bill. You're shocked. So,
wow.
in one real world situation, I saw a hospital. It's not uncommon for a hospital to have 1,000 lines because of all the rooms and all the services that they have. They went from $45,000 to $750,000 a month bill in 1 month. If you have locations that are certainly over 10 years old, it's very likely you have phone lines. If you haven't done a good job of making sure that those are shut off, you should certainly review your invoices, make sure you're not paying for some of those. It's a technology that's in a back closet, so most people will pay the bill and not really know, that it's on there. And then if for whatever reason a client can't get rid of it immediately, we do have a loophole to subside those charges for the next year or so.
Wow. Well, I mean, hopefully when you get that first bill, they would negotiate with you a little bit. I mean, if you go from paying $40,000 a month and then you get a bill for $750,000, I mean, that could be devastating.
Right. So I was at a car wash, I mentioned I visited one last week. They had 12 locations, and 4 of them were still running DSL internet for their point of sale system. So we're working on getting those upgraded and swapped out.
Interesting. Boy, that's surprising. I hadn't heard DSL in a long time, but I guess it makes sense. Yeah.
A lot of it is things like fax machines, fire alarms, things of that nature that, like I said, are in a back closet that you just don't ever think about. And so that's why they're increasing the price so much, because they're trying to get rid of that equipment and get everybody off of those systems so that they can go and upgrade and move people to things like fiber. So
Interesting. Well, thank you for coming in today, James.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking the time to join us for this professional car washing and detailing's Wash Talk. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest has been James Christian from Centaur Technology Advisors. We hope to see you again on a future episode.